Hi, sir. Good morning.
Hi, morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome all four of you to class. um so guess what we're celebrating today, guys? We are celebrating our second to last teaching class, right? Well, officially I think UTech goes until I think it's the end of November. Did anybody get any of you got any updated calendars for the semester? Anybody? Or at least updated dates? Did they update you as to when is study week? Nobody? Hold on, you guys hearing me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I
Heard
don't
you.
think I don't think we get anything from you guys yet.
No, nothing from me to get. Okay. Well, we have, in terms of new topics, we have one more topic to discuss, but I'm gonna push that to next week, and I'm gonna dedicate this week to finish working on your assignment 1, right? And then next week we'll do our final topic for the course, and we'll be working on the final project pretty much. So the next week's class, definitely you want to make sure that everyone is there, all right? Because remember that the final project is going to be 40%. So I did manage to get through some marking during the week, but according to what I'm seeing here, I'm only seeing like probably about 30% of the class that submitted the studio-based project. So I don't know what's happening, but not a lot of persons submitted work there. And we're coming up to the end of the semester, all right? So I don't know. Perhaps you can pass that news on to your classmates for me. All right, guys? So who here has finished their model?
Sir, it had been a long time. Not modeling at all.
Really? I mean, I give an intro video and I give a cheat sheet. None of those help?
Where's the cheat sheet, sir?
Ah. Well, it's a cheat sheet, so you're not supposed to find it. But let me remind you as to where it is. All right. When you go on the handout, okay, let's go to the handouts here. Right. So when you go on the student page, and we go to computing, and then over to digital design media, and then we click on assignment 1. So that's the one that you're doing now at the house. Then one of these links, so I think it's this link here. No, those are the backgrounds that you're going to use for the final project. And these are more, go to plans, and here we go, 3D modeling guide, right? So the video that we did only covered like just the part to get you started. So on the handout where it gives you a link and said this is where you find the plans to do the model, in that folder I have placed a PDF, which is here. And this PDF is what I call the cheat sheet. So it gives you like a step-by-step snapshot of ways how you could go about building it. All right. But nevertheless, for today's class, wherever you are with the model, we're just going to be using it as is. All right. So, let me see now. Is there anybody here anybody finished the model? Anybody reach 70%, above 70%? No? No? 50%? Hold on, who started? Who started the model? Who here started the model? Oh, wow. All right.
So you should have told me about this sheet. I would have finished it then.
Well, I did discuss it in the last class. All right. So here what now? If you well, I will upload today's video. So, but you can take it as a danger warning that if you have not completed the model by today, then you're basically in the red for handing in the assignment on time, right? Because this is the final week for handing in that assignment, right? So we said 2 weeks. So 1 week is gone already. Today is Saturday. So the official due date of this assignment is going to be by next class, right? And I'm going to dedicate this class to doing the other half of the assignment. So just like last week, we're going to go through how do you composite the image after you have modeled it. And that's what we're going to go through today. It's going to be pretty short. So today's class I'll probably only keep it for about an hour, but it is up to you guys to catch up in a major way to get the model done today, right? Also, I can help with creating the model today as well, right? If I'm in the mood, I may just decide to model along with you, might as well. But I don't want to move ahead to the final topic. I want to give you guys enough time to try and finish the model, so you'll be in a good position for the assignment. All right. All right. I want your heads to be clear for when we tackle our final topic, which is going to be hybrid images and website building. That's going to be our final 2 topics, and both of them we're going to tackle in the same class. All right. But I don't want to do that while this assignment is looming over your head. So that's why I've dedicated 2 classes to the assignment. So we did one last week and we're going to do one this week. All right. Shanil, is that hand a question, or is it just is it an old hand? It's an old hand.
Old hand.
All right. All right, cool. All right. So let's take a look on what do you do with the model once you have it. Now you can follow along even if your model is incomplete, right? Even if your model is incomplete. And then when we finish going through this, I don't know, I might, if I'm in the mood, I will I will just model this building from scratch today if I'm in the mood. Just to kind of show you guys that this is not like a 2-week assignment. This is a 2-hour assignment, literally. All right. All right. So we are going to get going with the modeling, with the compositing.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, hello and welcome to another tutorial. In today's class, we are going to look at compositing and this will be using SketchUp and Photoshop. Now, after having an idea of how compositing works, essentially it is combining 3D images with 2D images. That's the type of compositing that we'll be using. So the first thing that we'll need to have is to have completed our model for assignment 1. So if we actually take a look on the handout, we can see that this is what our model should look like. Now I have a completed model here. And this completed model is the one that we will use to do our compositing. Now, ideally, the first thing that we would want to do is ensure that we have everything correct on the model. And let's take a look on that reference image again. All right, so this is our model here. Let's take a look on that reference image. And you can see on the reference image that we have a nice background. We have this building in the water, but more importantly, it is perspectively accurate. We also have an entourage here. So in this case, it's a boat. So the first thing we need to do is to get our building at the correct angle. Now, to do this, we're going to use a couple features from our tray. So I'm going to actually pin that since we're going to be using it quite a bit. Now, we do want to ensure that we have our shadows enabled. There we go. And also, we do want to get our background as well. Now, if you look on the handout, you will notice that there is actually a link here to access entourage and backgrounds and things like that. Let's click on that. And let's look at entourage components and look in the background folder. And from this folder, you can see, let's put this on 3D view here. You can see the different background options that we currently have. So we are gonna choose, let's see this one here. This one here looks pretty good. That also looks nice. There's another one there. There's another one there. Now, ideally, you must use a background from this folder, right? You cannot use your own background. So we're going to use this background and we're going to actually put this building in the water. Let's just look at the others that we have here. Okay. So if we look, if we click on the link in the handout, we'll be taken to a folder that has these different views, right? And the idea is that you want to place your building in a way that works with these views. So when selecting the view, you would want to keep an eye out for example, you know, look at the perspective lines of a particular view so that you can determine how your building will be aligned. So for example, if you were to put your building over here, you know, look at the lines of the dock, and perhaps, you know, your building would perhaps be aligned something to that effect, you know. So you're gonna need to look at these lines here, and there are quite a bit of images, so you can select the one that best suits you. But remember, you need to have reflections, you need to have an entourage, whether it's a boat or a person, and the perspective needs to be aligned correctly. I'm going to select this image here, so I'm going to download this image. All right, now remember guys, you have to use an image from the folder. All right, so make sure you don't use your own image, but I give you at least about 4 images to pick from. All right, okay, let's continue. And this is what it looks like. And I am planning to place my building perhaps somewhere about here in this image. So when you're selecting an image, you know, just kind of picture where your building would be. All right, now the next thing that we want to do is, let's go back to SketchUp, and the first thing we need to do is to align our building to the background. Now how you do that is you need to head over to styles, and then you're going to go to edit, then head over to background and watermark, and you're going to click the plus to add a new watermark. Now you're going to look for where you downloaded the image, so here it is, and that watermark should just pop in our scene, and it should be semi-transparent, right? So notice it says you can do an overlay or a background. That's a background, so let's leave it on background and choose next, and we're gonna just leave this as is. Choose finish, stretch to fit screen. You're going to lock aspect ratio, ensure that you do that, and you're going to choose finish. So now what you're going to do is angle your building so that it lines up with the image, and you're going to do that by panning and zooming and just kind of getting the image just right. Now you also have to watch your perspective, because this image has, you know, the perspective is a little bit wider, I think. So I would go to view and camera, and go to field of view, and I'm able to just kind of change my perspective a little bit to better match the image here. Kind of push it up a little bit, and you can kind of see, look at how your lines are aligned to the image. You can use that to help determine how it would be. Now you can additionally decide to put your building on the opposite side here. Let's kind of orient that a little bit. Now once you have your building roughly in place, you are gonna create a camera. Let's give another image a swing here, because some of you might choose another image that is a bit more challenging to align. This one is not so bad. Yes, let's look at this one here. So I'm going to download this image again, right? And I'm going to go back to SketchUp, and this time I'm going to choose a little minus there, so I'm going to delete in that background. I'm going to go to add, and I'm going to add this new background, and I'm going to do the same things that I did just now, where I'm going to go next and next and next, and there we go. Oops, actually I put it on blend. Let's edit that. I think we can edit that. Okay, let's remove it again and add it back. There we go. Yeah, we want to change this to background, right, so that it's in our background. There we go. So in this case, this one is a little more tricky to align. So remember, I was saying to watch your perspective lines. So if I do this like this, you would see that, okay, this is kind of okay. It perhaps want to come a little bit more that way. Then it perhaps wants to get a little bigger. So we're gonna zoom in a bit. Now, when you're doing this, remember that this is a flat image. So let's assume that we wanted to put the boathouse on this side beside the boat, right? So we want to do something like this. You know, let's say we want to do something like that. Well, of course, we're not able to put the house behind the boat because the boat is actually a part of the image. So what we have to do is we have to kind of imagine what it would look like behind the boat, and then we're gonna do that manipulation when we go in SketchUp. So maybe it would need to be a little smaller, not too small. You can also switch over to you can also switch your view to X-ray. Not X-ray necessarily, but more, let's go to wireframe. There we go. So wireframe will kind of give you a better idea, you know, because you can see where the lines are lining up. So let's assume that we wanted to put it kind of something like that. Remember, you got to kind of ignore the boat in this case. I think that would be about it. Now, before you do anything, you want to save this view because you might spend some time trying to align this thing and you don't want to accidentally move the mouse. So we're going to save this view, we're going to go to camera. Well, we're going to go to camera and go to toolbars, and we want to turn on a toolbar called advanced camera tools. Now, once you do that, that toolbar will look like this, or in some cases it will be horizontal. What you want to do is choose this first option, which will create a physical camera from. Now, when you have the view like this, you're going to want to save your camera view in case you move the camera after spending so long to align it. And you're also going to want to save the style. If you remember when we spoke about styles, we have actually edited a style here, and to save our style, this style will have a background. We're going to highlight this and we're going to call it new background. So now there is a visual style that's called new background. So for example, if we change our style to, you know, one of these other styles here, we can easily just select back that new background style that we have saved, and it will load back. So what we want to do now, oh, actually we need to, let's go further and edit this style here. We're going to go to, actually no, this is fine as is. This is actually fine. Now what we want to do is, let's go back to wireframe, and now we're gonna use the advanced camera tools here. Now you find the advanced camera tools by going to view, toolbars, and you need to turn on the advanced camera tools right there. Now the advanced camera tools will allow you to create a camera, and that camera will hold this position while you move around and do other things. So for example, I can create a camera here. It's going to ask me to name that camera. I'm going to call it comp camera. All right, short for composition camera. I choose OK. So now this camera is here, and actually my view is actually locked to the camera now. Now meaning that if I move around, then I am actually moving a camera. And how do I know this is happening? Well, there's an icon right here that will allow me to unlock the camera view. Unlock the camera view. So if I zoom out, then you can see that's my camera looking on my building. Now if I can move around and do everything else, but if I want to get back the view that I had, I can simply click this button here to view through the camera. Pretty much like that. So I can always go back to this camera view. Now, this is important. If I uncheck that, then my view becomes unlocked. Now I know it is unlocked because when I click here, it says locked. And locked means that the camera is now locked into the view, so I can move around and I don't have to worry about moving the camera. The camera is always looking on the building. So if I click my go to view, it's gonna ask me which view do I want to go to, and it will go back to that view. So my view is saved. Now if I unlock, so notice you see locked here. If I unlock the view and I move it, now I'm actually moving my camera. So you might want to do this if you realize that something isn't quite right, and then you lock it again. All right, now once it's locked, I can move around and do other things that I want to do. So if, for example, you wanted to position maybe a person or make some edits to your building, you can go ahead and do that and not have to worry that you're moving your view. Okay, let me go back to the view now. There we go. Now the next thing that we want to do is, we don't want to export this building with this kind of cartoon style. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually further edit this visual style. So we're going to go to edit, and we are going to go to edges, and we're going to actually turn off edges and profiles. So that will give us a little bit closer to a realistic look. Now remember that we're actually editing our style here. I've actually renamed my style to Landscape Architecture Style 3, but I'm actually modifying this style even further. So I would need to, well, the styles are automatically saved. So every time I go back to this style, it will load back everything. Actually, it's not fully automatic. you do have to update the style. So for example, if I turn on my edges and I want to update this new style now, I need to click this button here, and now my style is updated. If I want to turn off, you know, if I want to make any kind of modification, I need to always update this style. Now you can know that your style is saved because if I go back to select styles and I select a totally different style like that, I can go back to my landscape architectural style 3 and everything should load back as how I had it. Right? So you save your camera, you save your styles, because you might want to come back to make some modifications and go back into Photoshop again. Now, the next thing you want to do is to also adjust your shadows. Right? Now, to do that, you're going to go over to shadows. There we go. Let's minimize styles. And when you go over to shadows, you might notice that if you want to get a different angle. All right, so notice that in my case the shadows are going this way, and I want to just kind of carry it down a little more. Let's make it a little longer that way. I think that is good. Let's carry it back a little bit. There we go. So I am liking those shadows. I can also set, you know, like the darkness of the shadows and so forth. Now you might realize that you are not really going to get shadows to look really realistic in SketchUp. So we're going to have to make some modifications when we go over to the Photoshop side. But at minimum, you should be able to extract your shadows, no problem. All right, so now that we have these things complete, we definitely would want to save our file. So I'm going to call it assignment 1 comp, short for composition. And now what I'm going to want to do now is to take this into Photoshop to do some more work. Now to do that, I'm going to want to save this, but without the image. Right? That's a key thing. I don't want the background in here necessarily. I rather have a transparent image, and then I can always modify the background in Photoshop. So to get out this image, first I'm going to actually turn off shadows, because I don't want the shadows right off the bat. I'm going to come back for the shadows later. So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Export 2D Graphic, and I'm going to export this, and I'm going to use this folder here, and I'm going to export this as a I want to export it as a PNG. I'm going to go to options, make sure that I have a transparent background. But before I can get a transparent background, I actually need to turn off my background because I don't want my background from SketchUp. So let me cancel that and go back into styles and edit, and I'm gonna go over to background to watermark. All right, there we go. And I'm actually gonna delete this. Now I can always get back my style if I want, so it doesn't necessarily matter. I don't want a sky, and I mean, it doesn't matter what the color of the background is. You just want to ensure that your background is plain. I would go with a, I don't think it should matter, but let's see, let's just leave the background as is. And then we're going to go to export 2D graphic again, but this time we're going to ensure that we choose PNG, and then under options we're going to make sure we choose transparent background. All right, and then we're going to choose OK and export. And we're going to wait for SketchUp to generate this image. All right, now when you see the image is supposed to look like this. So there's nothing else in this scene but the background. Let's zoom in here. So that's a nice image there. And we're gonna now work some magic in Photoshop. Okay, now once you have Photoshop open, this time what we're going to do is we are actually going to open our background first in Photoshop. So we're going to go to File, Open, and we're going to find where we had that background. So I'm going to go to Downloads, and that's the background that we got. Now it's important to open the background first, because the idea is that the background is going to be already aligned for us to the foreground. So now once the background is in, notice it comes in on a layer called background, and I'm actually using my layout for my workspace layout for DDM that we created early on in the course, right? So this is why this is what my workspace looks like. Now the first thing we want to do, we want to not use this as a background layer. We want to have this as a regular layer. So we're going to right click that and go to layer from background, and what that's going to do is turn it into a layer. So we're going to call this BG for background. All right, there we go. Now that it is a background, now what we want to do next is we want to drag our image that we created, or we're going to place it over it. We can use the place command. So we're going to go to place embed, right? For those of you who have a different version of Photoshop, you'll just get one place option. Doesn't really matter. So we're going to choose place embedded, and we're going to browse to where we have that image. Now this should drop exactly in position, or roughly in the same position, and then we are going to choose the OK button here. Now you could also drag your image in, doesn't necessarily matter. And once the image is in, notice it's going to come in as a smart object, and you know that because it has the smart object symbol that we saw from the early days. That's that little smart object signal there. But if you remember that the smart object is a layer, the smart layer is a layer that cannot be modified. So we don't want that. We want to be able to erase and do all kinds of stuff. So we're going to right click that, and we're going to say rasterize layer. So now we're able to edit that layer. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need our shadows to come in to this composition, and a clever way that we can get that done is we could either save an image with the shadow, or we could guesstimate where the shadow would be, right? So those are your options. Now if you're feeling confident about drawing your own shadow, then by all means you would create a new layer, and we'll call that layer shadow. And with the layer called shadow, what you're going to do is you would now use your, there we go, our polygonal tool, polygonal lasso tool. Make sure that you're on the shadow layer, and we're going to actually just kind of draw in kind of a rough shadow here, kind of like that. And we're just going to do like that. There we go. Then we're going to fill this with black, so ensure that your paint is set to black, and you're going to go to the paint bucket and fill. All right, next we need to actually deselect, so we're going to switch back to the lasso tool, right click and deselect. Now we need to put the shadow layer behind that layer, and there we have our shadow. And of course we can adjust the opacity of this shadow here. There we go. Now if you're not feeling confident about drawing your own shadow, you could save out an image that has the shadow from SketchUp and then use that as a base to trace out the shadow, and then you can just delete that layer. But I'm pretty sure you guys should be able to confidently be able to trace out a shadow. All right, good. So I'm going to, now what we need to do, we obviously need to deal with this boat. The fact that this boat is actually, the building is obscuring the boat, but it should be the other way around. So let's turn off our shadow and turn off our building. Now for those of you who might have objects that are supposed to obscure your rendering, or rather your 3D model, you're going to need to cut out that object and put it on a layer above. So in this case, the boat is doing that. So I'm going to actually cut out the boat. And I don't really need to cut out every aspect of the boat. So I'm using the polygonal lasso tool. And where it's getting too small, I'm actually going to use the plus button to kind of zoom in a little bit here. Alright. Remember, you don't have to pan around. You can actually push your mouse towards the edge of the screen and it will kind of move that around for you. Alright, now notice in this case that even if I cut this out, I have these little spaces to deal with, but I'm going to come back and deal with that right afterwards, right? I'm holding space bar and left clicking to pan. Or I could have just pushed my mouse against the edge of the screen to pan. There we go. I'm going to cut this out here because the house is going to be in front of that. Now depending on how much of your image is obscuring your boat, oops, I went too far there, press backspace to undo, it will determine how much you need to cut out. Now in this case, I'm actually just going to go ahead and cut out the entire boat, because I may want to move my building around at a later date, so I don't want to just cut out the exact areas. Alright, good. Now once that is done, I'm going to actually copy this, edit, copy. I need to be on the background layer because this boat that I'm cutting out is on the background layer, so I have to ensure that I'm on the background layer. So I can go to edit and copy and edit, and I'm going to go to paste special and go to paste in place. That's important because when I do that, I'm actually just pasting a picture of the boat directly over the boat. Let me show you what I mean. If I turn off the background layer, I just have the boat by itself. There we go. So it was pasted directly on the boat. Now if I turn on back my shadow and the building, then I would want this boat, I'm going to call this layer boat. And I would want my boat to be like that. Let's turn on back the background. There we go. And that is looking a bit more reasonable. Now perhaps I need my shadow to be a little darker. We can mess with that. Additionally, I do believe this shadow is supposed to be a little obscured when it at this point here. Now you can really, that point here should be a bit more obscured. Now you can really get down and dirty in terms of how you want your shadows to be. If you are a person that is very particular about shadows, well, that is great because that will help you to for your buildings to come out looking, your compositions to come out looking more real. So in this area, this shadow should really kind of cut off at that point there. So let's actually do that. So we're gonna go to the shadow layer and we're gonna use our polygonal lasso tool, and we're actually gonna cut this out here, and I'm gonna hit delete. There we go. Now we've gotten rid of that shadow, so now that looks a little bit more realistic. You can see the shadow falling behind there. Now the other reason this doesn't look too real is there should really be some kinds of reflection that's happening here and possibly in the window. So we're gonna also do some kind of reflection as well. So we're gonna use the same concept that we used before, where we're gonna actually duplicate this layer. So there is the house, is that little building there. I'm gonna duplicate that layer. Right click and choose duplicate. I'm gonna call this layer shadow, and I'm gonna put this, sorry, not shadow, I'm gonna call it reflections, shots, REF. I'm gonna put it below, even below the shadow layer, and I'm gonna flip this around by just clicking the middle and just dragging it down. In some Photoshop I need to hold shift, so I gotta hold shift to drag it down and just kind of flip it the opposite way like that. There we go. Then I want to kind of skew this into position, so we're going to use back some of these tools that we were familiar with. So we're going to go to edit, and then we are going to go to distort. Let's move that out of the way. So let's see if distort can do the trick. Let's see here. We actually want this to kind of be like that. And it doesn't have to be like perfect. It just needs to kind of look like it's, there we go, you know, it will take some amount of getting used to. Okay, so that will be our reflection, so we're going to choose OK on that one, so we're happy with that. Then of course we need to cut out the walkway section here, so we're going to do the same thing like we did with the boat. We're going to now go to our background layer, and let's actually turn everything off. Now look closely, when you have a lot of layers, look closely how you can turn everything off. You can just click the layer above, click and hold and drag, and that will pretty much turn off whatever the mouse cursor hits. Now what we want to do is to cut out this walkway so that we can use that. So we're going to do the same thing. Make sure you're on the background layer. You're going to use the polygonal lasso tool, and this should be relatively easy because it's a straight line. So we're going to cut out, let's just cut out the entire dock. We don't know if we're going to need it. No, we don't need all of the dock, so I'm just going to cut out just the top part for now. Doesn't matter that I've cut this in half there, because we're not going to need it just yet. Now once we do that, we're going to now do the same thing. We're going to copy and then we are going to place in place. So we're going to call this new layer that we've just cut out, and we're going to call this dock. And let's turn on back our layers now, and we're going to put the dock layer in front of the reflection layer. Right, there we go. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. Now next, what we want to do is definitely turn down the opacity of our reflection layer. So we're going to go to opacity, and we're going to kind of turn that down, so it's kind of looking like that. There we go. And next, we want to probably add some wrinkles to the reflection. So to do that, we're gonna, on our reflection layer, we're gonna go to filter, and there should be some interesting filters that we can use to get some wrinkles. So if under filters we look under distort, here we have ocean ripples, we have ripple. Let's try ocean ripple. Let's see what that looks like. And we just want to wait for that to come up. There we go. So we should get a preview of what that should look like, and we can actually maximize this. And let's zoom out by clicking this button here. All right, and we can actually mess with this. We can make the ripple size bigger, and we can change the ripple magnitude. You know, let's see how that looks. There we go. So that's looking a bit more nicer. Next, what we want to do is to kind of get rid of this hard edge here. It's not looking too realistic. So to do that, we're going to go on the comp, assignment 1 comp layer, and we can know that's it by turning it off and on. And let's just use the eraser tool. The eraser tool is here. And no, that's not the eraser tool. There we go. And what we're going to do, let's make that brush. So we're going to edit the brush size up top. So we're going to make that brush size way smaller. We're going to let the hardness be all the way to 0 because we want it to be soft. And oh, we're going to also adjust, in my case, the flow needs to be 100%. Let's make that brush a little bigger, and we're gonna kind of erase some of these hard lines here. There we go. All right. Right, so now it looks a bit more like it's coming out of the water. All right, great. So more things are happening. Now, we could also put some reflections in the mirror. And to do that, what we want to do is let's create a new, we're going to go on the background layer, and we're going to actually use the polygonal lasso tool. And we're gonna cut where the glass is. So let's turn off our boat for a while. All right, good. Now we just need to cut where the glass is, and what we're gonna do is we're not actually gonna cut out the glass. So that was the first one. I want to cut the second one, so I'm gonna start another lasso cut here by holding Shift. Notice when I press Shift, I get the plus button. So I want to hold Shift, and then I want to start with the lasso tool again. So I have two selections. Now here is the important thing. I want to cut out a section of the background to use in my reflection. So listen, look carefully. I'm going to actually drag this and I'm going to put it somewhere over here. And the idea is I want to cut out this section of the image and then use it as my background. So let's do that. So I'm on my background layer and I'm actually going to cut this out by doing Control C. And then I'm going to do Control V. Now I don't have to do paste in place. No, I can just paste it pretty much anywhere. And I think it's actually paste in place. Let me turn off the background. There it is. And I'm going to call this layer Reflection Glass. And I'm going to use my move tool and I'm going to just now move that into place here. Oh, this needs to be on the top layer, so I'm going to put this all the way up top. And I'm going to try and just snap this in here. There we go. All right, now that's looking like a reflection. Though it's not realistic, but you know, it can pass. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to distort this a little bit. So we're going to make the opacity and carry it all the way down. All the way down, so you just barely see it there. There we go. Let's carry it down even further. There we go. So now it's kind of mixed. As a matter of fact, another thing we can try to do is we can change the blending mode. So let's try one of these. Let's try screen, and then take the opacity down. I think we get pretty much the same effect. It's almost the same effect. Almost the same effect. All right. So there goes our reflections. Now, when most of this stuff is done, you want to do, because you're in Photoshop, it's a good idea to do some kind of color correction that will help the picture to more blend nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called an adjustment layer. Now to do that, that's a whole new panel. So we're going to go to Window, we're going to go to Adjustments, and that will open up our adjustment layer. Now the type of adjustment we want to use is going to be, let's use a photo filter. So we're going to click that. And notice what happens. There is actually a new layer that has appeared here. And what this layer is doing is that it is affecting all these other layers below it by applying a photo filter of orange. So it's kind of adding an orange tinge to everything. Now that maybe orange is not quite your flavor, you can, there are actually some presets here. So I did a warming, and there are different types of warming. There we go. Now the great thing about adding an adjustment layer is that it is indeed an adjustment. So if I turn it off, you're back to the original image. So you aren't modifying these pieces, but instead you're adding an adjustment on top. So I'm going to add another adjustment layer. I'm going to add hue and saturation, and this is what that looks like. Now notice again that another adjustment layer has appeared, so therefore this is going to apply on top of this, and then that is going to apply to everything below. So you can actually layer adjustment layers upon adjustment layers upon adjustment layers. So for this adjustment layer, this I would probably want to beef up the saturation, you know, to get that water pumping. Not too high though, it's gonna look weird. So just a little. There we go. And that's it. And let's add a last adjustment layer. So this process, what we're doing is called color correction. right? So we're doing some, or color grading. We're actually manipulating the colors of the entire composition. So we're gonna go to now brightness and contrast, and we're gonna just kind of brighten the image just a little and add a little contrast, not too much but just a little to let it be interesting. There we go. Now you can add your own kind of look and feel to this, but pretty much that is what is required. Now we're gonna need an entourage. In this case, we kind of use this boat as an entourage. But for those of you who might choose a different image, you might have to cut out your own image of a boat. You can use entourage from the internet. You don't have to use the entourage that's provided, but you do have to use the backgrounds that are provided, right? So pretty much once it's done, we are going to save your file. Right. Now, are you guys still with me?
Yes, sir. I am here, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm
All
also
right,
here.
cool. All right. Now, what I'm hoping you guys can recognize from this is all right, here we go. Now, the method that we use to put this together is this kind of layering method, right? And some of you might have recognized this from when I showed it previously, right? Now, the different numbers, right? Yeah, right. These represent the different layers that we had put together in Photoshop, right? Now, notice you see these steps. Notice you see these steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, and 5. So that kind of represents what thing you do first. But also, if you look in Turk, we read from like right to left. So in terms of the layer stack, on our topmost layer, this is what we have. We have the color correction. That is what we did last, where we changed the color of the whole thing. Below the color correction, we had our entourage, so things like the boat, the people, trees, things like that. You have below your color correction. And then below that, you have what's called the image foreground. What is the image foreground? Those are elements that fall in front of your 3D object. So for example, if we look back at our example here, remember originally this boat is a part of the background, right? So the boat was actually behind the building, but the boat should be in front, right? So we had to cut out this boat and put this boat layer here, which is on top of our 3D layer. Let's go back to this here. Right. So the image foreground layer is anything that needs to be in front of the model. Below that layer, we have the actual model. That's what we got from SketchUp. And we saw the process of how we can align it to the image. And then, of course, below the 3D model, we have our image background, which is the background that you select, right? So pretty much with any visualization that you do in architecture, this is the general layout of everything. Now, you can add more detail to this and let it be even more complex, and hence it would possibly look more real. But the general idea is that these are your basic steps whenever you put in a composition together. All right. So this little image here is something that you should always remember. If you are working in studio, it's something that you should just stick up on your studio wall so that you remember, okay, right, these are the main layers I need. And it is also there so you don't necessarily overcomplicate stuff, because sometimes you just really need to do a quick composition to show something, a concept or something, and this is just a quick reminders the core components that you need to put a 3D composite together. All right, guys, so that is going to be it for my guidance with you today, right? So this week is the last week that we're focusing on the assignment, right? The cutoff time for the assignment will be next week. If I look on my calendar here, our next class will be on the 18th, and that will pretty much be our final class, at least the final teaching class, right? I'm going to be leaving you with your final project, which you're pretty much going to just do that for the rest of November, right? But you're going to do that on your own, and you're going to submit that like about the 30th of November, the last day in November. All right. Your final project, I think you guys are well prepared to do it. It's pretty much things that we have done before. So I want us all to show up for class next week. All right, guys. And that will be our final topic that we deal with. We're going to deal with hybrid images. That's something that you're going to need for the rest of architecture. And we're going to deal with website building. You are going to build your own website for the final project. So make sure you don't miss that class so that you have an introduction to do that. Don't worry, it's very simple. So we're going to be using a website builder. So you're not going to be coding any HTML or anything like that. All right. My last assignment to you guys my last announcement will be that for those of you who haven't submitted your assignment, we pretty much have like about almost 4 weeks of school left. Then after that, we're going to have to submit the grades to UTech. So you're going to want to get your stuff in. I had done some marking, so go and check to see that your grades are in. As usual, if you don't see it, you can message me or we can talk about it next class. All right. I do believe that I had gone back to start marking the exercises that were handed in late. I think exercise 4 and 5, the late marking of 4 and 5 is still remaining, but I think I did deal with 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, but the portfolio is marked. So if you handed in your portfolio, you can go and check your grade. All right. And I will be marking the assignment. I guess that will be next week, right? Because the due date is going to be before class. All right. So that is going to be Friday the 17th is going to be the due date for the assignment. That's this assignment that we worked in class. All right. To which, when you come class on the 18th, remember you're going to get your final project and you will have that to take with you for the rest of November to tackle. All right. Okay, guys, any questions?
Sir, what we did last week with the host, is that a class activity that should be submitted?
The host. Oh, you mean in class?
Yeah.
I was going to do it, but no, I'm not going to turn it into a class activity. I would rather everybody get done with their assignment. So next week we'll go through all the class activities and you will get to see how much you guys did, how much you guys participated, and to see how much out of that 10% you will be carrying home with you. All right, so that last one, I'm not going to make it in a class activity. And from my statistics here, I mean, we only have about a quarter of the class here, and out of that quarter, only a quarter have started the model. So I would really rather everybody try and lock in that 25% for the assignment. All right. So just spend the time and work on your assignment. All right.
All right, sir. Since you're here, I don't know how you got the elevation to stand up after you. I don't know how you did that. You can show
Oh,
me
you
that.
mean in SketchUp?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me just. All right, for do. Okay, let me. All right, let me just make it a part of the recording. All right. I do believe it is also in the video, but I mean, I can just show you here. It's no biggie. All right. Let's go with a blank architectural millimeters template. See if I can locate my drawing. Right, so that is the base, and this is the front elevation, right, that you have right there. Well, one thing that you have to recognize when you're rotating in SketchUp, it depends on what your view is like. So for example, in this case, I want to rotate this guy here like that. That's what you meant, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So when you're rotating, it can be a little bit tricky. You would need to go to the protractor tool. The shortcut is Q, right? Or you can just click the tool there, whichever one. Okay, now here's the thing. If I am doing a more top view like this, then I'm only going to really get the option to, oops, sorry, not the protractor tool, the rotate tool, which is different from the protractor tool, right? This is the rotate tool here, right? You know, you realize that you're going to be rotating in the Z axis. But if you want to rotate, in this case, along the X axis, you have to orbit your view that allows your UCS to change to the red axis. Now, here's the thing. If this UCS works based on your view. So if I hover in this general direction, it's only going to allow me to rotate in the Z axis. But the more I go into the distance, there it goes. Now it has switched to the X axis. Of course, if I come back down, it's going to go Z again. So that's why I'm saying it depends on your view. So if I had a view like this, it would be hard for me to get the Z axis, right? So what I would do is orbit it where I am a little closer to the ground like that. And then when I get the red axis now, I'm gonna hold shift, and that would lock me into that axis. That means no matter where I put the mouse, I'm always going to be locked into the red axis, which is your X axis. So while I'm holding shift, I'm gonna drop it right here and then click. And now I'm able to rotate that way. All right, but the only trick you need to do is that you need to orbit your view so that you can change it to the red axis. If you notice, when I go to the distance here, this is the green axis. So the green axis now, oops, the green axis now would let me go that way, but that's not the way I want to go. So I would need to hover till I get the red axis, and I get it when I move the mouse all the way up here, and then I hold shift, carry it back, click, and then I can rotate it. All right, so that's a little trick with rotating there. All right, any more questions, guys? Anybody else is having any trouble with their model? Like, where is giving you a problem? Anybody else? Can I tell you something that is going to be hard for you guys to hear? If you have reached about 70% in your model and you discovered that some of your lines weren't coplanar, anybody can tell me what I mean by the word coplanar? What do I mean by coplanar?
The lines aren't aligned properly.
Right. So you have one line that is slightly off and the other one is slightly off and stuff like that. So if you have some of your lines that's not coplanar and you are more than 50%, 70% through your model, just start again. All right? I know it's hard to hear, but trying to fix a model that is not coplanar in SketchUp, you're going to spend more time fixing the model. All right? If maybe you just start, hopefully you can find it. But if like you're almost done and then you discover that, oh man, the ground was kind of lean and the windows was lean, it's easier, you literally just start over that segment. So that is one tip. Another tip that you can do is try to model in different components. So for example, if I, for example, model the wall, so let's say that I have the wall like here, all right? I'm gonna just, I'm just gonna rough it out. All right, let's say that I have the wall like that, right? Before I draw the roof, what I would do is I would make this into a group or a component, but in this case, a group. So that way, when I start to draw the roof now, so for example, if I say that I'm gonna, all right, if I say I'm gonna draw the roof like that, and maybe, hey, I shouldn't be doing this because I'm giving you all kind of little tips and tricks that you should learn on your own. Anyway, but let's say that you decide to draw the roof, and I'm just gonna do a rough kind of extrusion like that. Well, the roof is now a different element from the base. So then I would select the roof now and make it a group. So now it's easier to, you know, they haven't stuck together. I can still move it around versus if it wasn't in groups, then everything would be stuck together. And if a line is lean, then the whole thing is off. So that's another tip that you can do. Try to, so like your window, you would want to draw your windows and doors as a new group or a new component. Once that object duplicates, you're going to best to make it a component, right? And of course, the advantage with making an object a component, all right? So I made this a component here. The advantage with making a object a component is that if you change one, all of them will change. All right. So if you have multiple windows, then you know, you would want to make one of them, then make it a component and duplicate it, and that way if you need to change one, the other one will change. All right, that's as far as the tips that I'm going to give you guys. Is there any more questions? After today, you're going to be on your own to finish this assignment. Please check the handout so that you can see what is on the assignment sheet. So here we go. Where are we? Here we go. Right. So please look on the handout and don't make up instructions in your head. Look clearly what the handout says. The handout asks for specific file types. All right, so you want to make sure you submit those file types as is. All right. Okay. When you're submitting the SketchUp model, make sure it's a SKP file. I've seen some persons accidentally submit like a shortcut or the SketchUp backup file. Make sure you submit the SKP file. All right. Also notice that you have to submit a JPEG. All right. You can just take a random picture like that. All right. All right. I think I've given you enough tips. Now go forth and get some hundreds on this assignment. All right. As I'm saying, guys, I'm seeing a big concern with the submissions. All right. Like literally, I only see a very few amount that have submitted the they made the studio-based project. This assignment is due next week. I mean, this week coming, which you can easily finish today if you just spend the rest of the class time and do it. These three assignments, the studio-based assignment, the assignment, and the major project, the three of those is literally what makes you pass the module. You must do them. All right. The exercises that we did at the beginning of the course, those were those were meant to give you your practice to do the assignments. So doing those exercises only, you definitely will not pass. All right. So at this point now, even if you had not handed in all your exercises, focus on these three assignments, right? The studio-based assignment, this assignment that is due in this week, and then the major project that is coming up next week, Saturday. Just focus on those and you will pass. All right, guys?
Yes, sir. About the studio-based assignment submission, sir. We just had final fit for Outlook. So I think the reason why people don't submit is because we're working on our Outlook project.
I figured. And some of you might even choose to use your Outlook project as your studio-based project, your studio-based assignment. I mean, doesn't matter. You can pick any assignment. My thing is just to get it in, and try not to make them overlap. Because some of you are going to be overlapping because you're dealing with this assignment and that assignment. So please get the assignment out of the way before the major project so you don't have this overlapping of work. All right, that will totally stress you out. All right, and there is enough time in the class time to actually finish the assignment. All right, technically there's like an hour and a half that's left in the class. Use that and just finish up the assignment, hand it in and get it done with. So next week when we move to the major project, nobody should be carrying any baggage with them. All right. Okay, guys. As usual, message me if you need to talk to me about anything, but that is our class for today. So I will see you again next week.
Yes, sir. Later.
All right, cool.